Welcome back to the channel. It's been a very busy time in the VR industry, and I think it's now time for me to consolidate many of my recommended VR headsets and the ones that I don't think you should buy in 2024 so far. So this video is going to detail all of the headsets that I recommend and all of them that I don't. And please bear in mind that even though I'm going to go through some of the good and bad points of each VR headset, it won't replace a full review, which I have many on the channel. And if I get a chance and I'm not too busy, I will link all of my VR headsets reviews in the notes below. So anyway, let's get into this video. But first, I want to just say a massive thank you to VRWave for sponsoring this channel. And I would highly recommend that whichever VR headset you go for, you get a pair of lens inserts. And whether you wear glasses or not, they really do protect those important and very expensive lenses. And they do account for things like astigmatism, if you're nearsighted or farsighted, and have blue light filters, which actually does help combat motion sickness and insomnia. I still do have a very nice 5% discount on all VRWave inserts, so do check out the description below. So the first VR headset that I still recommend in 2024 is the Pico 4. It is a really great headset still, and one of the most comfortable VR headsets that I've ever put on my head. However, I'd only buy one if there is a decent deal. Sometimes this headset can be only around £300 or less on Amazon, so do have a look around for those deals. Because the thing about the Pico 4 is it has a really nice balance, and it just sits on your head so nicely all day long, and you don't really need a lot of accessories with it, apart from perhaps a new facial interface. The strap itself is plenty good enough. The pancake lenses, while they're not the best I've ever seen, are still very, very nice. And overall, I do think that if you can find a decent deal on this headset, it performs really well with virtual desktop now, especially with VDXR integration. And although it's getting quite long in the tooth, there is many people on my Discord that still really enjoy and recommend this headset. I think one of the reasons why this is such a great headset is also down to its binocular overlap, which is far better than the Quest 3. It also has a slightly higher resolution panel at 2160 by 2160, which means screen door effect isn't so obvious. And in terms of the controllers, the tracking and the overall package, it's more than adequate for flight simulation. And I'd recommend this over a Quest 2 any day of the week, especially as it has very nifty features such as air cooling, a Snapdragon XR2, and it also has decent black levels and field of view. However, please do keep in mind that this is quite a cheap headset, so don't expect amazing visuals. The pancake lenses, as I say, aren't the best I've seen. The colours generally are quite washed out, and the audio does definitely lack bass. But if you can find a decent deal on one, I would recommend the Pico 4 still in 2024. I've no idea whether there's going to be a Pico 5. We can only hope and pray that that will happen, because I do feel that Pico were probably the closest VR manufacturer to take on Meta. Talking of which, the Meta Quest 3 is probably the best headset in the world right now for most people. And really, it is a much better headset than the Pico 4 for not a great deal more. The pancake lenses in the Quest 3 are actually fantastic and some of the best I've ever seen, even compared to the really expensive headsets from Vario and Somnium Space. Now, the Quest 3 is a fantastic all-rounder, and if you're looking for a headset that can do many things very, very well, this could be the jack of all trades, simply because it has a really good mixed reality pass-through, especially with the recent updates, as well as a stellar software package. That means that most of the time it does behave itself in flight simulators, especially again with virtual desktop, with SSW, which is their motion reprojection. It is fantastic and very, very smooth. Also, I find that with the Quest 3 you get much better visuals and it runs better than that of the Quest 2 simply because of that better processor and with better software support. However, it isn't all good news because out of the box the Quest 3 is extremely front heavy and very uncomfortable indeed. So I would recommend that you get some accessories. I do have a dedicated video about that, but I really enjoy the Orbica battery head strap, the AMVR facial interface, and a pair of VR Wave lens inserts. But overall, the Quest 3 continues to evolve and the Meta engineers are the best in the business when it comes to really getting that software dialed in, and the updates have made this headset way better than when it was first released. But it's not all good news, of course. The display, which is 2064 by 2208 pixels per eye, means that actually you can see screen door effect a lot more than the Pico 4. And since it has canted displays, it means that screen door effect is quite prominent on a blue sky. Also, because they've tried to trade binocular overlap for field of view, it is quite bad for anyone that is not in this sort of sweet spot zone of say 63 to 66 IPD. But the major issue with both the Pico 4 and the Quest 3 is they don't have a native PC VR connection. And for flight simulation, where visual fidelity is at the utmost importance, that is the Achilles heel of both of these devices. And the overall image quality will not be as good as a native HDMI DisplayPort connection. It's as simple as that. So it is hard for me to fully recommend the Quest 3 as a flight simulation headset, but I will say that it is a phenomenal all-rounder. And if you like to enjoy all aspects of VR, and that is, you know, PC VR gaming as well, then the Quest 3 could be your next headset. Now, as a bit of a wild card, you could even go for the Pico 3 Neo Link, which does offer that DisplayPort goodness. But that headset has Fresnel lenses, and even though they're pretty good, I don't really think Fresnel lenses is something I can recommend in 2024. Now let's move on to the DisplayPort connection VR headsets, and that is the Pimax Crystal, which blew apart what was possible for image quality for a decent price in 2023. Now, there are two different versions currently of the Pimax Crystal. The one you're seeing at the moment is the Pimax Crystal Standard Edition, which has the battery. With this, you do get eye tracking for DCS world lovers. That is really super important because you get dynamic foveated rendering. And even you can use this in MSFS with the OpenXR toolkit as a layer. It probably only gives you about 3 or 4 FPS more. Whether in DCS world, it can give you up to about 100% performance improvement. But with the standard Crystal, you do have the capability, hopefully at some point, for it to go wireless. So that is an intriguing thing to try. But overall, I personally would recommend the Pimax Crystal Lite, especially for MSFS lovers. Now, I don't know if MSFS 2024 is going to support eye tracking. So this is a tricky one, quite honestly, because if it does, then actually the standard Crystal with its eye tracking would give you a great deal more performance. But for MSFS 2020 and for this point in time, because obviously VR technology is something that is moving very, very fast, I do think the Crystal Lite is a fantastic option because it's very comfortable. You have that beautiful glass aspheric lens design with a QLED panel, which means you get far better blacks and better colors than that of the Quest 3 and Pico 4. You also get no God rays or glare with aspheric lenses, and even though the overall sweet spot isn't quite as good as the Quest 3, there is more of a geometric sweet spot. I find once you get dialed in, you get used to it, it is absolutely fine. Also, it's worth considering that the standard Crystal does need a battery to run it, and even though it can last quite a long time, it's extra faffage, as I like to call it. And I do find that the standard Crystal is not quite as stable as the Crystal Lite, which just works every single time I run it. There is some bad points there, of course. The Pimax team, whilst they are really trying to hone in that quality control, it isn't where it should be, in my opinion, and there are some rogue headsets out there that can have dead pixels. They can have issues with the displays. The lenses, some of them can be quite warped. So please do keep in mind that, you know, the Crystal Lite, if you get a good one, it is fantastic, but there is that risk of getting a bit of a dodgy one as well. So make sure that whichever way you get your headset, that you can return it. I will recommend though that if you do use my affiliate link and you are a member of my Discord, you do get much better and direct comms with the Pimax team. And many of my Discord members already have replaced their Crystal Lite much quicker through my Discord. So that is worth noting. Also, both Pimax Crystals, well, they share the same housing, which is a shame because I do feel the Crystal Lite could have been a bit smaller, but don't be fooled by the look of the headset. It is quite comfortable, and I do feel as well, if you opt for the DMAS floating ear design speakers, then you get excellent off-ear audio, which in my opinion is a great feature that all VR headsets should ideally have. The Pimax Crystal Lite really is the best bang for your buck when it comes to PC VR for the flight simulation crowd, and I highly recommend it. I have a full review on the channel, go check it out. Now it's time to talk about the Bigscreen Beyond, which I've shown on this channel many times since I got my first prototype last year. This headset is something completely different, and as you can see from this footage flying the Just Flight 146, it is probably the coolest looking and smallest VR headset known to man, which means it is incredibly comfortable, and with its 2560 per eye OLED display with custom pancake optics, that means black levels are perfectly black and the colours are absolutely gorgeous. It's also incredibly stable, and I don't think I've had any issues with the headset every time I've used it. Performance is also pretty decent, simply because with the pancake lenses you need less barrel distortion correction, which is then less resolution for your GPU to handle. And I must say that the field of view in the Bigscreen Beyond is pretty damn good as well. That also depends on your face shape, but I'm getting around 102 degrees horizontal with this headset, which is basically the same as the Crystal and Pico 4. Very impressive indeed. Unfortunately though, as with the case with all VR headsets, it's not all good news, and most of my problems are down to the stacked pancake lens design, which unfortunately produces a lot of glare. And in some scenes, especially high contrast scenes, it is an issue. However, flying something like this with steam gauges and there's not, so much displays glaring at you, the display looks the best and it doesn't have so much glare coming at you. But I must admit, at perhaps nighttime or sunset, which is really what you want to be doing with this headset with the OLED colors, that's where you see the glare the most. But it is dependent upon how you use it and what applications you're using. But for flight simulation, when you're looking at bright cockpits, generally speaking, it is a bit of a deal breaker. Not to mention also, because of those tiny pancake lenses, there is a very tiny sweet spot. It's not as bad as Fresnel lenses, but there is a sweet spot to contend with. I do find though that if you are able to super sample the headset, that does widen the sweet spot out a little bit, and you do get absolutely sensational sharpness with the headset. I'm not sure if you can hear right now, guys, but as I'm talking, a RAF Typhoon is going over the house and it sounds fantastic. So if you can hear it on the recording, my apologies. It does sound really good though. So overall, the Bigscreen Beyond could have been the best VR headset out there, but unfortunately those limitations with the image quality really does make a difference to me. It's also worth considering that out of the box you don't get any audio, but I do have a review of the recent deluxe audio strap, and that does improve things quite a bit, and it does really sound decent. It's not amazing, but it reminds me of, say, a Reverb G1 or Oculus CV1 audio solution, and it's, you know, more than adequate. So I would recommend, if you are going to get a Bigscreen Beyond, then definitely go for the audio solution as well. And it's probably worth noting that many of these VR headsets that I'm talking about in today's videos, I do have affiliate links for. So if you find this content really useful, I would really appreciate it if you would use those links, because it just helps keep the channel going, folks, because it is super hard posting regular content with a full-time job. Now, if you're still with me, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next VR headset. This again is a bit of a wild card. I appreciate you probably can't even buy them brand new anymore, but the Pimax 8KX continues to be in a league all on its own when it comes to field of view. If that's your thing, then it really is the 8KX. It's absolutely phenomenal, with 170 degrees horizontal, 200 degrees diagonal, and about 100 and goodness knows what, 110 degrees, I don't no idea what it is, vertical. It just doesn't matter because you can't see the edges of the display. It really is quite an incredible experience, and nothing else out there right now compares to it. These days, actually, a GPU such as a 4070, for instance, will be able to run it really well, especially in MSFS, without the need for parallel reprojections. But as I say, this is an enthusiast level device, and you know, if you do sort of find one second hand, just make sure it's been looked after, and possibly, if you can, go over and try it out first. But it really is a phenomenal headset, and I've got to say, I still love using mine. In fact, you've probably already seen it on the channel recently as part of my UK to US ferry flight series. Right, things are getting pretty serious now. We're reaching the super high end, and this is the Somnium VR1, and I've got plenty of content on the channel now from my prototype unit. At the time of this recording, I still haven't received my final unit, but it's probably going to be very soon indeed, and I can't wait to show you that on the channel. But this headset quite simply defies its specification, especially when you consider that it essentially has the same display as the Pimax Crystal. That is a QLED 35 ppd display. But the thing is, with the VR1, the display is much brighter. The field of view is a lot wider. I measured around 122 degrees, but depending on your face shape and the facial interface, it's capable of 130 degrees horizontal. The aspheric lenses are absolutely sensational and pretty much as good as the Quest 3 pancake lenses. You know, when you think about the sweet spot and edge-to-edge clarity once you're in that sweet spot, it's really superb. And in terms of the mixed reality capabilities, it has dual 12 megapixel color pass-through cameras. And actually, there's many different versions depending on what you want and what you don't want, which I actually really like that, because the VR1 comes in at a base unit that is just a VR headset, no fancy cameras or sensors. Then you can add additional modules such as the hand tracking, the eye tracking, and the mixed reality capabilities. All in all though, as I've been testing out the full bad boy edition, as I like to call it, it is an absolutely amazing, incredible VR headset. And now that the Vario XR-4 is a lot more expensive, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the clear winner for the absolute best VR headset for flight simulation, if you can afford it, is the Somnium VR1. There's no doubt about it. It is superb from every aspect of its design, its build quality, the software. I really do love the headset. However, you know what I'm going to say, it's not perfect either. And the worst thing about this headset, as you enjoy some through the lens footage, is the weight. It's not something you notice straight away, but on a long session, and when I mean long session, I mean at least over an hour, you start to feel that frontal weight because of the way that it has a dual aspheric lens design. It sticks out from your head a lot further than other headsets. And at the end of the day, physics, well, they're physics, and anything that's further away from you that weighs something, you will feel it more. Imagine a full bucket of water, for instance, and if you hold it at arm's length, it's going to be a lot harder to hold than if you had it close to your chest. That's the best way I can describe it. But as I say, once I get the final unit, I'll be able to give you my final conclusion of this headset. Now, there's so many aspects to this headset that is very special, including its modularity, its open source nature, especially with the sensors. You can 3D print your own parts. The software is uber configurable, even down to culling the field of view, so you don't render anything that's going to waste, and it does make a difference to the frame rate. It's just a fantastic package, absolutely. And I can really see that private flight schools will be buying a fleet of Somnium VR1s because it actually makes more sense to go for this headset than the super high-end Vario XR-4 when you consider the price. And as you can see, this through the lens footage, as I'm sure you'll agree, is pretty damn good just using a phone. And in terms of the clarity, at a 35 ppd in MSFS, if I compare it to say the Crystal and Vario Aero, well, it's a lot sharper without a doubt. So the Somnium VR1 really is an exciting VR headset for those who really can afford it, but there's no doubt about it, it is expensive. But let me tell you, from someone who had a prototype unit for over a couple of months and used it every single day, when I tell you that it never put a foot wrong, it never crashed on me, and it always fired up when I needed it, and it always amazed me in terms of its visuals, I think this is the kind of headset that you'll probably have for many years to come, and it will be a great investment to your hobby. Now it's time to reveal the very best VR headset that I've ever tried, and if money is just not a problem to you at all and you don't mind being an early adopter, then it is the Vario XR-4, and you probably already see my video expressing that this is literally my favorite VR headset that I use when I'm not recording YouTube content, because I appreciate that most of the time it's not really that useful as consumer advice. But what really seals the deal for me with the Vario XR-4, well, it's a number of factors coming together. The first one being that it is absolutely incredibly comfortable. Like, insanely comfortable. I don't know how Vario have done it, but I can easily wear this for 3-4 hours at a time. Especially with the active cooling technology, it makes it feel like you've got air conditioning for your face, and it really makes you feel refreshed. Couple that with the fact that I have now seen 55 ppd in DCS World, and you can't unsee that kind of clarity, guys. It's a massive jump from 35 ppd, and there's no getting away from it. And I hope that at some point in the future we can see true native dynamic foveated rendering for MSFS 2024, because if that does actually happen, then the Vario XR-4 will be an absolute insane experience, because it will basically be human eye resolution. But again, the XR-4 is far from perfect, and it has a lot of issues when it comes to quality control, more so than any of the headsets I've mentioned, even the Pimax Crystal. It has really bad tiger stripes, and it's luck of the draw whether you get a decent one. And I know Vario are aware of this problem, and they are delaying the main consumer release because of this. Now, I know it might sound strange to hear this, but actually the consumer market is a lot more picky than the military contracts that they have. For instance, Lockheed Martin and the Finnish Air Force use the XR-4 to train their pilots. And say if you are a pilot and all you're bothered about is passing that exam, then you're not going to be too worried about the fact that there's a bit of mirror in the display. all you're going to be worried about is can you see all those gauges. And the XR4 is the absolute sharpest VR headset out there right now that you can buy. And for the military and for pilot training, that's all they care about. But having said that, it is good that Vario are continuing to improve and are aware of the problems with the display, and that includes also the tracking, which at the moment it is getting better, but it's still very lackluster. Also, the binocular overlap isn't very good either. I don't find it much of a problem myself, but it could be a problem for you, especially if you are on the lower or upper end of your IPD. Anyway, that's enough from me with the XR4. I've got loads of content and information about it on the channel. Please do check it out. I'm now going to quickly go through the headsets that I do not recommend you buy in 2024. The first one being the Vive Pro 2. It's one of those headsets that I did struggle to recommend even back in the day when I first tried it. But especially now, with the fact that the headset does get incredibly hot, it has a very small sweet spot. And I've always thought the housing on the Vive Pro 2 did not cater for its 5K display, which means there's a lack of ventilation, which is a problem. But I do think that even worse than that is it does suffer from glare, and with its stacked lens design, the sweet spot is actually worse than that of the Reverb G2. Talking of which, I do not recommend that you buy a Reverb G2 anymore, simply because it's not being supported anymore by Windows Mixed Reality, which is basically now dead in the water. So please do not buy a Reverb G2 anymore, whether it's a second-hand one, if you get one from a friend, it's just not really worth it, because at this point in time, it's definitely reaching its end of life, and I really don't know how long it's going to be supported. That is also applicable to the Vario Aero, which really breaks my heart, because the Aero was a huge deal for the PC VR industry when it was first released, and really inspired a whole host of other manufacturers, including Pimax, to use aspheric lenses. It really is still a superb headset, and if you have one, just enjoy it. But at the end of this year, support will be finishing. And that is, again, such a shame. One good thing, though, is that Vario do release previous Vario-based software on their website. So you can download all of the older versions just in case there is a issue down the road and there's some compatibility problems with their latest software. But I would urge people to buy a Crystal Lite over a Vario Aero at this point in time. So, what other headsets do I not recommend that you buy in 2024? Well, it's got to be the, let me get this right, it's such a weird name, DPVR-E4 VR headsets. I do have a review on the channel, and at the moment, DPVR, they are known for their presence in the arcade market, and you may have seen when you're, say, at the beach and going to the arcade, if that's something you're into, you will see lots of DPVR headsets, and they're great for that. They have tried to penetrate the consumer markets, especially with this DPVR-E4 VR headsets, and, you know, I do not recommend you buy it because it has Fresnel lenses. The resolution is, I think, very similar to that of a Quest 2, if not the same. And I remember the plastics of the headset feeling very brittle, the sweet spot was very small, and the colours were incredibly washed out. I did, however, in fairness, like the binocular overlap and the software, and I think over time this company could be really great, but at this point in time, that's yet to be seen. I also don't recommend that you buy a Quest 2 at this point in time, and that's because there may be an announcement due any time, possibly before this video even goes live, announcing a new Quest 3 Lite, which I believe will be replacing the Quest 2. Now, looking into the future, there is the Pimax Crystal Super, and make no mistake, you will be seeing it on the channel when they are ready for me to try it. But at this point in time, I can't really comment on that headset because I haven't tried it. All of the information you have heard today in this video is based upon many hours and even years of experience with all of these VR headsets. And these are the ones that I recommend at the moment. When the time comes and I've got more to say about the Crystal Super, then you will be seeing it on the channel. And hopefully I will be one of the first channels to showcase the Crystal Super. It does promise to be a Vario XR-4 sort of headset in terms of its PPD for a lot less money, but I really can't say until it's in my hands. Now, I hope this video has been helpful to you. It's taken me ages to make it, so if you're not subscribed yet, please do share the love and let me know in the comments below what are your thoughts on your favourite VR headsets, or perhaps the ones that you're looking to get in the future. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care, and bye for now.